Hey guys, I'm Ben, and wanted to take a minute to tell you my story. I created this channel to kind of document my journey back into the world of ultra running. Um, Back in the early 2000s, I got into triathlons as a way to just kind of motivate myself to stay in shape. I was a college athlete, and once I got out of college, I kind of let myself go. I didn't have a reason to be active on a daily basis. And so, as I realized that in the early 2000s, I started just jogging a few miles a day just to try and lose some weight and stay in shape. And then realized that I needed a reason to get myself out of bed and go for that run rather than just to run or run just to stay in shape. I needed some sort of goal, some sort of thing to reach for. And so that became triathlons. And so I was just a novice and started out with a couple of sprint distance triathlons, very short, worked my way up to doing some Olympic distance triathlons. And I live here in Central Florida, so I love doing the Disney had at the time had an Olympic distance triathlon, and over in Claremont they have a great triathlon series. So I did those over there, the Olympic distance, for several years. And for me, my definition of improving, for whatever reason, wasn't necessarily to get faster and faster, even though I did want to beat my time from race to race. But my goal was always to go farther and farther. So I was never trying to win races. I was never trying to become elite or anything. I just wanted to see how far I could push myself. So that evolved from doing the Olympic triathlons to doing the half Ironman, and then eventually the full Ironman triathlons. So I did several half Ironman triathlons. I've done two full Ironman triathlons. Both of those were the Great Floridian Triathlon over in Claremont. So as I continued to see how far I could push myself and was doing the half Ironman and the full Ironman triathlons, I came across a book by, I don't know how you say his name, Dean Karnazes, and maybe I should look that up, Ultra Marathon Man. And I think this was in like '04, '05. I read that book in one sitting. I think I sat down and read the entire book, and I almost felt the urge to get up and go for a run and carry the book with me. It made me want to run more, not just run more, but run longer distances. You know, he talks in the book about just running through the night and ordering pizzas to be delivered to him on the side of the road while he's running through the night. And so it just really made me want to push those limits even further. So I found an ultra marathon that I wanted to sign up for, and there was really no research that went into it or anything. I basically just went online and found the next available one that I could find. So prior to that point, my longest runs had been, I had done marathons before, and then of course I had done the Ironman triathlons, which included the marathons. But the 26.2 was essentially the longest runs that I had done. My training for that ultra marathon, which was the 2006 Memorial Old Dominion Memorial Ultra, was very ignorant, I guess. I just went running every day, and I just ran and ran and ran. But I did no research on nutrition. I did no research on pacing myself, on gear, on any of that stuff. I just ran, and I would write down every day how many miles I ran, and I think the most I ran was 300 miles in 1 month, which is about 10 miles a day, which, you know, isn't a whole lot, but I was just wanting to put in as many miles as I could, thinking that I could get myself in shape physically for an ultra marathon, but not knowing that someone like me is never going to be in shape enough for an ultra marathon physically. The running an ultra marathon is more of a mental challenge than it is a physical challenge, because it's not a question of whether or not your body is going to give out on you. It's just a question of when it's going to give out on you, and then what you're going to be able to do with your mind to push yourself through those barriers as that happens. So I got to the race, and there was a requirement that you had to carry a certain amount of water with you. There were aid stations every 6 or 7 miles, something like that, but you had to at all times have, I don't remember what the requirement was, but a certain amount of water with you. And I had never trained with any packs, any water packs, nothing. Like I just, when I would train on long runs, which my longest training runs would be 17 miles, maybe 18 miles, I would do loops, and I would leave water or something in my car, and I would just stop at my car and drink water and then do more loops. And so when I got there and they said that I had to be carrying water, I said, okay, I got to get something to carry water with. So I bought this little fanny pack looking thing that carried a water bottle on my back. And so I get to the start line, they say go, and I ran for less than half a mile, and I took the pack off and I threw it on the ground, and I just couldn't run. It just bounced all over the place. It was horrible. And so I found myself running 100 miles, literally carrying a water bottle. And I was thinking back, I was trying to remember what I ate during that race and how I fueled myself. And I honestly don't remember, as far as food goes, what I ate. I know I drank mostly water, but I don't. There was, like I said, I was very ignorant. I didn't do a good job of fueling my body and preparing well for the challenges that were ahead of me. I had no idea, and of course I went out fast, and that adrenaline was pumping, and I did the first 35 miles way faster than I should have. And it just on pure adrenaline and ignorance. And, but then shortly after the 35 mile mark started to slow down. And then by the time I got to the 65 mile mark, my body had completely shut down. Like all the muscles in my legs were seized up. Like I literally couldn't move. I got to, well, right before I got to the aid station, there was an aid station somewhere around 65 or 67 miles, somewhere in there. And shortly before that, I was walking and I had run out of water. The bottle that I was carrying was empty. I was extremely dehydrated, and the race director drives by and to check, he's just doing his drives, and I said, hey, you wouldn't happen to have any water in the back of your car, would you? And he said, yeah, I have some water in the back of my car, but if I give you the water, it's going to disqualify you. So I said, well, then I don't want your water, then I'll make it to the next aid station, which was a mile or two ahead, which at that point was, it may as well have been 10 miles. So I made it to that aid station, which again was probably somewhere around 65, 67 miles. I laid down, which was a horrible mistake, and I was stiff as a board, and I couldn't bend my legs, I couldn't move my arms or anything. I was just laying there. And I don't know how long I was there, probably at least 20 minutes. And somebody found some Bengay, they rubbed it on my legs, they got me some water, and I was able to get up and walk my way to the next turnaround point, which was, I think it was around 70 miles, 75 miles, somewhere. I don't remember exactly the way the course was laid out. I got back to that point, and from there was able to just basically push through on grit and determination and finish the race. So that's the background that I'm coming from, which is just basically ignorance and stupidity and just wanting to see how far I could push myself. So after I finished that race, I had this feeling of, I don't know how to describe it other than emptiness, I guess. Like I felt like once I reached this pinnacle of the 100-mile ultra marathon, that that was my dream, you know what I mean? That was my lifelong goal. And I was 25 years old and I reached it. And so it was kind of like, now what, you know? And so I did another Ironman triathlon after that same year in 2006. And then I stopped doing races altogether after that last Ironman and haven't done any since. So it's been over 11 years since I've done any sort of races like that. I did for a year or two after that, I did continue to work out, shorter runs, a little bit more weights and CrossFit, things like that, just stay in shape. And then, you know, life happened. We had kids and priorities change, and all of a sudden, you know, I can't spend 3 hours a day, 6 hours a day, long runs on weekends, every waking hour, focusing on me and what I want to do. I'm focusing my time on being a good father and being a good husband and keeping my priorities where they need to be. But as a result, my body saw the effects of that. You know, I wasn't taking care of myself the way that I should. Not only was I not exercising, but, you know, my diet was horrible. You know, I was just I wasn't even caring what I would eat, and anything, all sorts of sugars and sweets and beer and whatever. And so over the course of the last 5 years, I've had this nagging feeling like you need to be running, you need to be taking care of yourself. And I'll kind of go in spurts to where for a month here or 6 weeks there, I'll jog a little bit, I'll run a little bit, but then something will happen and I'll come up with an excuse not to get out of bed in the morning. And then the next thing you know, 2-3 months have passed by and I'm not working out, my diet is no good, and I'm way back up to 280 pounds again. So that brings us to today, where over the course of the last month or so, I've made the decision again that I need to be taking care of myself, but I need to do it in a way that's balanced, that I can still take care of my responsibilities as a husband and a father, and take care of my family in the way that they need to be taken care of, but also part of that is taking care of myself. And so I started running again, and, you know, really that's all it was. And I had no intentions of getting back into distance running or races or anything like that. As I was running, I started listening to podcasts, just something to keep my brain occupied while I'm running. I know some people are against listening to music or running or podcasts while they're running or whatever, but again, I'm not trying to become some elite athlete, or I had no intentions of running any races, but I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and he had on David Goggins. I won't take the time to tell you his story here, but I just tell you, if you want to be inspired, go find David Goggins. You can find him all over social media and YouTube. And so as I was listening to the podcast with Joe Rogan, they talked about his book, which is called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And Rogan mentioned that he was listening to the audiobook version of Can't Hurt Me as he went on his runs. So I immediately came home from that run and found the audiobook, got it on my phone, and then the next week and a half, 2 weeks of running were some of the most intense runs I've ever had, because I'm just listening to David Goggins tell his story of his childhood, his upbringing. He's a Navy SEAL. He's run countless ultra marathons. He holds the pull-up record and all sorts of other crazy stuff. He's just on a different level when it comes to challenging yourself. So from there, my wife and I started talking about, okay, you know, what's this going to look like? You want to do another ultra marathon? What's that going to entail? And for me, like I said, I want to have that balance between my working out and my running and everything, and being a father and being a husband. But also, you know, this venture, it takes a hit on you financially. You know, there are things that you have to pay for if you're gonna be in this world. And so there's you know, entry fees. You've got to buy shoes and hydration packs, and you have to be able to fuel yourself. What are you gonna eat and drink and all that stuff? And, you know, if you go to the races, you got to have a hotel the night before and probably the night after. just countless expenses that are going to start to add up. So we started saying, why do we need to do sanctioned races? Like, if I want to do a marathon, I can just go do a marathon. I've got, GPS on my watch that tells me how far I've run, so I can go out right now if I want to go out right now and go for a 26.2 mile run. And so those are some of the things that we're looking forward to doing. I still do want to do some sanctioned ultra marathons, and I still do plan on doing those. But in the process of training for those and getting ready for those, I'm going to be doing some of that stuff on my own. I'm going to be doing straight up marathons just as my weekend long run. Another challenge that I'm going to be doing is I don't know what it's called, 48 by 48, 48 miles in 48 hours. It's basically you run 4 miles once every 4 hours for 48 hours. So that's coming up on the schedule, and then I'm going to be running an ultra marathon on my own, unsanctioned, just with my wife as my support crew, and going to turn on the GPS and run until it says I hit 100 miles, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. But in the meantime, I'm going to be tracking my progress. I'm going to be checking back in with you guys, showing you what kind of gear I'm using, trying to become more educated with the gear that we use and the way that I fuel myself and things like that. Like I said, in the past, it was very ignorant, and there was no research done at all. I just went out and went running. So I'm going to be experimenting with new things, strategies when it comes to nutrition and hydration and things like that, as well as some of the gear that I use, shoes and packs and socks and clothes and everything else. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it as well. And that's also a cool way to get my wife involved, because she loves to do those kind of research projects online, to look up and read reviews on what's going to be the best hydration pack for me, because I'm a big guy and I need one that fits me, and what's going to be the best kind of shoes for me, and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it as well, of being more educated and seeing how that will impact my performance in these longer distance races. So looking forward to it, looking forward to the journey, and seeing what barriers we can break through next.